All right, there we go. We're live on Facebook and YouTube. Welcome, everybody. Second show of the day. We got 4 or 5 today. I can't remember. We've got a new friend coming on, Amenti, the Awakener, and I went to her website, her Facebook page, and very powerful. Looks to be a very, very powerful hour. So I would encourage you to stick around. We're going to put our little intro on right now and allow people time to come in. If these shows resonate with you, we're really getting hammered right now on the algorithms. We're being suppressed big time, like we haven't been in a long time, which is kind of interesting. So if you could share this to one page or one group or email it to one friend, we would appreciate it. Thank you. How's it going, everybody? We've got a new friend in the house. We're going to get to know her in typical Soulology fashion, which means spontaneous, intuitive, creative, imaginative, and depending on what we're talking about or doing, courageous, all the attributes of the I Am Soul. Her name is Amenti, the Awakener. We're going to get to know her now. I'm going to pull her up on screen. Hello, Ellie and Delia and Allison in the Zoom room. Thank you for your continued love and support and contributions, and everybody else that allows us to keep doing this by the seat of our pants every day, which there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. Okay, let's see. There she is. Okay. Wow, look at that symbology right there. That's pretty cool. Let me get her video on. You're muted. You're muted. We want to hear your beautiful voice. Hello, beloved sister.
Greetings.
Thank you for coming in and sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence. I've not met you. My name's Todd, and this is Soulology, and this is our main show, Soul Speaks 5D. It's a conscious conversation. It's not a typical Q&A. I don't know if Leilani told you, but we just have a conversation, so you're welcome to ask questions as well. But it's a pleasure to meet you. You've got very powerful energy, and I love your place over there. It speaks a lot, and the colors.
Yeah. Greetings, Todd. Thank you for inviting me to share with you. And greetings to all of your guests and I suppose my new friends. Thank you.
All the crazy people. This is so many people that come on the show, and there's been so many, especially Divine Feminine, have come on the show for their first time, like coming out. 2,000 episodes. There's been hundreds of them. So that energy is here, but the one of the things that people say that are watching or come on is like, wow, I'm glad I found this community because everyone thinks I'm crazy. And so I always say, hey, this is where all the crazy people hang out because crazy is not crazy anymore.
Exactly. We are the ones we've been waiting for, I suppose, hey? All of the rainbow and black sheep that have been coming and incarnating into these families. We finally found our place and our time. And it feels good. So, yeah, I'm glad to be alive at this time, to be fair.
Absolutely. I cannot think of a place, a timeline, a dimension that I'd rather be in than right here. And, and we've spent so much time trying to distance ourselves from the human part of us. We have two sayings here. One, I am soul, and two, the human is the hero. And then if Todd gets really rowdy, the human is the effing hero. But the point being is, this has been such a beautiful trip. We've had, countless incarnations here.
Mm.
We're kind of having a summary life now, and the beauty of it is the shadows led to the gold, and
Yeah.
the black sheep is the golden child,
Yes.
and it's like it's like we're a dog chasing our tail, and we finally figured out it was us all along. We're both the mission and the prize. But this isn't about my opinions and stuff. We're here to get to know you a little bit. You obviously are lit. If I was writing a post, it'd be lit AF, capital AF. But how long have you been lit? Did you have a traditional wake up experience? On or around 2012, where you had a lot of traumas and or an accident or something. No, you
No, I mean, my story is a bit different. I was born awake, and when I say that, I don't glorify it like as if it was something, great and easy, but I was born with a knowing of who it was that I was. I
yeah,
was born with the knowing that I was the feminine aspect of the source creator. And
yeah,
I was born with that divine consciousness of literally having a direct connection with the source in every moment of my experience.
yeah,
My first earliest memories were of me observing my mother's womb, and there was just light energy in there, and these four tall beings who were literally singing and cultivating this energy in my mother's womb. I remember when I was born, when my body was released from my mother's stargate, I like to call it, because that's what it felt like to me, like a time machine, right?
yeah,
When my body was released, I didn't enter into the body straight away. The body had to adjust to the vibration of this reality. And I remember entering about a minute after I was actually born. And I had those memories as a child. And it was only when I was writing my book that I actually asked my mom, like, when did I cry when I got when I was born? And she said it took a while for me to cry. They took me away, put me on the table, and after a minute or so, I started to cry. So that kind of confirmed that memory for me, that the higher vibrational the soul is, it takes a longer time before it gets into the body, because the body's not able to fully hold the frequency of that soul. So they say old souls enter into the body later on. So
yeah,
that was pretty much how my journey started. Growing up, as a child, I would always know God to be the voice in my head. So I had that connection with the creator, and I was shown that I came here to learn certain lessons and to help humanity. Now, as a child, knowing that you're here to help humanity, I didn't know what that meant. But the experiences that I went through helped me to understand what that meant. And what it meant was that I was observing life from a different perspective to everyone around me. I grew up in a family of women, but they all had a lot of issues around their feminine energy, around relationships. I grew up in a family that had an ancestral connection to healers. They were a family of healers. They were a family of teachers and women leaders, but there was a great disconnection to the spiritual power in our family because of cultural
yeah,
misunderstandings, patriarchy, all of that kind of stuff. And to be fair, the African West Indian culture, they had fallen in their spiritual knowledge and power and started using the spiritual gifts to cause harm to each other. So there was a lot of negativity around even a child who could see or a child that could heal.
yeah,
My gifts were touch at first, divine knowing and touch. So if I saw somebody, I would ask them questions like, why did you have this in your life? Or why did you go through this? And people would look at me and be like, how is she telling me this at 4 years old? And so I attracted a lot of negative energy at first. I mean, just imagine this young child coming and telling you about all of the things that you thought nobody else knew about, and saying with such a blasé attitude. That was me. And my other gift was touch. So I could touch somebody and instantly understand what was going on in their body and bring healing as well. I could channel that healing energy. I felt very alone at first, because I realized that as much as I was awake and I had God as my best friend, like my guide, nobody else had that. And people didn't understand me. They didn't understand me. They didn't understand how I saw the world. Even when I'd see people arguing and things like that, I would literally see spirits jumping at each
yeah,
other, and colorful energy flying from people. So I'd be in such horror, and I'd be like, no, don't do that. And they'd be looking at me like, what's wrong with you? This is how humans are, right? And
yeah,
I remember one of my first encounters of feeling lonely, I would just stand and stare at the sun for hours and hours, because for me, I knew that I came through the portal of the sun in order to come here, because we're light, right? And I knew that I was light. So even to the point where I used to have to go to the hospitals because I used to damage the retinas in my eye
Is
by
that right? Wow.
oversensitivity to light. And so one of the things that I felt really when I came to this earth around 5, 6, music and tone and sound was very important to me. I could channel certain languages and frequencies, so that was my way of connecting. But I felt very much alone. You know, I would lie down sometimes, and every night I would speak to the creator, like as if I was doing a download for the day. And I
Right.
would speak to the creator and let him know I was sad, I was lonely, people didn't understand me. And he would say to me, that voice, that energy would say to me, don't.
Uh-oh. Was that me or her that got lost? Wow, that was powerful. Somebody let me know which one of us is frozen. I guess I'll figure it out
We
here.
transform karma. We learn soul lessons through our experiences. So I went through sexual abuse very early on in my childhood at the age of 8. Now I knew that that was going to happen because I saw it in a dream, and the divine told me that this was one of my first tests that I needed to overcome for my family lineage, right?
Yes, yes.
And so I came from a family where there was sexual abuse. And so when it happened, it was something that on a human level shocked me, but on a soul level it didn't. I knew,
Yeah.
okay, my only purpose in this is to speak the truth. My only purpose is to say what happened to my
Yes.
mom and move from that space. But when I actually told her, that was my first experience in understanding that humans didn't like to hear the truth, and that even though people were adults, they were spiritually immature, so and emotionally immature. I saw my mother regress inside of herself. I literally saw her soul crumble. And whilst her soul crumbled, I saw the experiences that she had been through that she wasn't able to tell anyone.
Right.
And so I was almost reflecting her experiences, but with a certain level of confidence because I was aware that it was part of my journey and my
Yeah.
destiny. That didn't make it any easier. She still shut down. She still rejected me, and I still had to go through that process. But because I had that connection with the creator, I was almost living an observer's perspective of life,
Yeah.
but still being in it as a way of understanding that humans were immature spiritually, and that I was here because I had that connection. That part of my journey was to help them to gain that maturity, to be an example, which can feel like quite a big burden at somebody at that age. And so yeah, my from there I went through spiritual abuse. I saw people that saw my light even before I did. I didn't think there was anything special about me. I just felt like that was just, my connection with the creator. People just didn't hear it. But
Yeah.
I realized early on that people could see the light in me. And it's funny that you say lit, because I'm going through another transmutation at the moment into my light body and bringing it further into my
Yeah.
my physical body. And so I would be taken to different churches, and they would place me in the middle of the church, and everyone would put their prayers and try and transmute their energy for me. And what would happen was my body would literally burn up, and what it would do is it's literally burning away all of these lower vibrational energies. But that left me with this need to constantly be processing other people's stuff.
Yeah.
Right, just
A
constantly
super, a
processing other
super,
people's stuff.
a super hypersensitive empath.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. I felt everything. And what I was looking for as well, to counterbalance that, I was looking for God in everything. So
Yeah.
when I would go to churches, at one point I was like, no, I want to go into the Jewish synagogue because I want to see God there. And I would go there and I wouldn't feel the same connection. Christianity, Muslim, everything. I was looking for the same connection that I had with the creator. But I realized that there was this intermediary, that there were these intermediaries that were put in place of each one of our connections with the source. And that was what was distorting our understanding of who it was that we are and what it is that we're here
Yeah.
to do. So through my journey, I kind of put myself in a back burner's position, and kind of felt like, okay, I'm just here to help other people. So I lived from that space. Even my relationships that I got involved in were based on me feeling like I needed to help and support these people to activate their light.
Yeah.
I always had a very deep understanding of all of the past lives that I had as well. So along my journey, I was meeting the past life reflections in this lifetime and clearing the karma. And a lot of my past lives were to do with the divine feminine, being Queen Makeda, being, you know, in the time of Arthur and the time of Atlantis. I could remember all of those things in my soul memory. So I was literally going through those experiences and clearing up the karma and gaining the knowledge, the hidden knowledge about those experiences and times. When I was 17, I was told that I couldn't have children at all. And I was at that time working in a hospital because one of my passions was to be a gynecologist. I've always been somebody that loves to study. Because I had quite a secluded childhood because of my abuse. I spent the whole time channeling, toning, learning music, praying and studying. I love to study. And so the body was something that I was fascinated about. And I understood, being in a family full of women, that the womb was just an important place because souls come through that. And whatever karma or whatever imprints are in the womb of that mother, the body, the physical body and the soul inherit that. Yeah. And when I was about, let's say 15, my mother had to have her womb taken out due to fibroids. And I just knew that this was not natural. This was not of the source, right? So I thought about wanting to learn more about healing wombs. And whilst I was working at the hospital, they told me that I had polycystic ovarian syndrome. And that was from taking the contraceptive pill once, right? They said to me I could never have children. And that kind of started me on another journey of getting into holistic health and herbal medicine. And within a year and a half, I had my first child. And I've gone on to I've got 5 children now. And so I realized that, that was part.
I'm from South Texas, and there's a lot of Catholic Hispanic families. You'd make a good one. Yeah. Having all those babies.
I know, right?
So this is really fascinating. This is incredible. I'm really enjoying this. Part of what really jumps out to me so far with what you've been talking about is the journey, the influence, the reemergence of the divine feminine, the mother goddess. And I'm married to a beautiful goddess myself, like you. We've been together about 5 years. She's been downloading under very similar circumstances to what you described. She was molested, raped from 3 to 13. Right. She was disassociating, going into dimension, and develops, like you can relate to this. I mean, developed some really acute, sharp, clear methods of communication, which still expand today. Although the stories are a little bit different, the outcome of it is the same. Like the roles are the same. Like that what you've described is really what she's done, is wake people up and take on family trauma and lineage and all that and straighten this out. Now, where I was going with this is, you come from a strong feminine lineage. Before you even said West Indies, it popped in my head. I said, I know she's from the West Indies. So I guess I can kind of see your makeup. But in terms of everything you've been given, all right, and I can relate to a lot of the things you said as a little kid, like, I thought everybody was like me, I didn't know how everything worked, but now that you're here, now that you're at this point in time, what are your feelings? What are your thoughts on, and we're talking energy, the divine feminine coming back? The divine feminine having landed 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, whatever, but there is a real growing sentiment and really evidence that feminine energy has gone full circle now, is wholly and whole, and is like a fire hose. Like, it's just not going to be stopped now. What are your thoughts on that in terms of your role individually and what you pick up collectively?
Okay. What comes to mind first and foremost is the figure 8, right? So the human experience, or the experience of being on this realm, is about us learning to have different levels of experience. So we've come out of patriarchy, which is the domination of the masculine role. And I don't necessarily mean even men, because men have been, you know, the perception of what a man is has been manipulated under the yoke of patriarchy. But we've
Agreed.
gone through an understanding of us being in our lower self and being controlled by power, and us being controlled by that masculine dominant energy. And we're moving always into wholeness, right? So the other side of that is the divine feminine. That's the part that was missing. When we look at the divine masculine, that's the world of material, that's the active, the physical, and the tangible. And the divine feminine is the spiritual. It's that which is hidden. It's the essence, the Holy Spirit within everything. So as we're moving into the heart chakra, as we're moving into this understanding of oneness, there has to be this resurgence of this divine feminine energy that naturally gives us the entry into the spiritual realm and understanding ourselves on a subtle level. So there is that need for that feminine energy to come in now, just because we've kind of had a one-sided view of what it means to be human. And when I look at it as the chakras as well. So the lower three chakras are to do with you, your personal lessons, your personal energy. But as you move up into the heart and above, it now becomes about your expressive energy, how you send energy out into the world, how you connect. And that is feminine energy. You know, that is a connection of feminine energy. And beyond that is the energy of the divine mother. And that's really what I'm bringing in, the energy of the divine mother, because the divine mother, I look at it like this. A mother can have many children from many different fathers, but she will always look to bring them together and see how they can work harmoniously together whilst also celebrating their differences. But when it's just a man, he always wants to make sure that his seed is the most potent seed and his seed survives, because that's his survival. So it's almost as if the mother energy is the unifying force. She brings that understanding, that nurturing, that compassion that helps us to move beyond our lower self into the realm of oneness. And we've seen a lot of separation in order to observe and learn about ourselves in our experiences. And so we're moving into the energy of the feminine so that we can understand not only the inner world, but also the subconscious world and the subtle energies. So I see it as in the journey to oneness, we must have both experiences of masculine energy being dominant and feminine energy being dominant. Just like how even the times that we're moving in, time moves in a law of rhythm, right? So we've had the dark ages, which is like the bottom end of the figure eight. And then you have the upturn, you have the 0 point in the middle where everything resets. And then you have the golden ages, all giving us that experience so that we can be in a space of oneness. And I also liken it to, you know, when you talked about your partner, you know, and the disassociation that happens when you go through trauma. Having that observer's perspective allows you to see the whole, right? And then you can be conscious about how you utilize that energy. Our men, our brothers who have been in this patriarchal mindset, this patriarchal reality, have missed out on the chance of understanding and tapping into their inner power, their divine feminine energy and the subtle realms. So it's almost as if this feminine energy resurgence is about bringing to the fore that which was hidden. When we look at the 13, when we look at that energy, it's the hidden, but we're bringing it into form now so that we can then move into a space of oneness. And so it's about us learning about all sides of ourselves, but firstly from the external and now the internal, so we can bring it into that space of oneness.
You're right on. They don't call it woman's intuition for nothing. And again, if we look, well, I mean, if we look at it from, and so now we're at this point, and this is really interesting because of the seat that I sit in as I observe this whole thing that we call, this transition we call ascension. And looking at the energy field and then, of course, talking with people and so on, what, from your perspective, you know, and I'm talking about the human hybrid soul, the divine, the burgeoning divine human that in this point right now, on this day, that's gone through a lot of this stuff. I mean, there's a certain amount of the collective experience and information, data, and code and light that we all kind of are conscious of. And a big part of that is this play between the feminine and the masculine. I shouldn't say it that way. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, how important or not important is it at this point to differentiate the two genders or to not differentiate the two genders? Because I'm with you. I see a lot of distorted masculine being brought to the surface. We can call it patriarchal, being brought to the surface, or patriarchal imprints brought to the surface in men, obviously, because I'm very candid about mine, and everybody will tell you that. You know, I've been castrated and the whole 9 yards, and stripped down to nothing. And there's a lot of men going through that. But I've also seen the imprint of the patriarchal on the feminine, in particular, the last
Yes.
couple of months has been coming up. And it's a good thing,
Yes.
because as my wife says, the first step in transformation is awareness,
Yes.
and so you're seeing it come up, and it's a really interesting play. But so back to the question, how important or not important is it to differentiate or not differentiate between the genders at this time? Are we still in school, in uni? Are we still trying to learn those two things? Because obviously I'm a man in this incarnation for a reason, and you're a female in this incarnation for a reason. But I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, everything is learning and everything is experience. And so, as we're moving from a space which has been dominated by a particular mindset and a particular way, in order for us to move into that next stage, we have to kind of embody the experience. So you're right when you say that there are males with negative masculine imprints and females with the same negative masculine imprints, because even when we look at the law of gender is not anything to do about man or woman. It's understanding that we all have masculine and feminine energies within us, and that when they work together, that's what creates oneness, a full perspective. And so what we're seeing, I believe, is where the imbalances are. It doesn't really matter so much about man and woman, but more about understanding the principles of masculine and feminine energy and how they can work together in order to bring that oneness. Because even when we look at how the same energy is being expressed through sexuality and, people being gender fluid and all of these kind of things, it brings it back to the understanding that everything is energy, everything is experience, because we have men who are in a masculine body, but who are exhibiting a dominance of feminine energy, feminine consciousness. And for me, I really believe that everything on the external world is teaching us about where there's imbalances. And I don't mean imbalances in terms of somebody's personal imbalance. I mean just in our understanding of reality. So we have kind of labeled men to be a certain type of way, and our status quo has suppressed their feminine energy. So them being in tune with their emotions, or them being creative, the so-called patriarchal imprint didn't allow for that. And so what's happening now is you're seeing more and more people, or more and more males, moving into that space. You're seeing more and more women who had an image of, we are so feeble and we are, so in need of whatever, who are actually very dominant. I was speaking to a brother yesterday who I'm going to be doing a show with, because he reached out for the fact that he's been through domestic violence, and he's got a lot of other men that he knows that have been through domestic violence with women, and they don't feel like they have a voice. This is all to teach us that at the end of the day, we're not really separate from each other at all. Mm-hmm. The reason why I've come in a feminine body is because this body is divinely designed to tune into certain energies. And that's what I came here to do. That's my purpose. But I still have to master my masculine energy in order for me to really be able to activate my intentions into this reality. We came from a system of codependency, which said that man has to be like this and woman has to be like this, and then they have to come together to make a whole. Whereas the truth is that we are already whole, perfect, and complete inside. And once we get that balance within, that's where the true unification and marriage needs to take place. So we learn from the imbalances, ultimately to bring it back to oneness. So gender, in a sense, I can understand why it's become this kind of elusive, fluid kind of perception, but really is to bring us back to the understanding of masculine and feminine energy so that we can bring it into oneness. Because let's say if you have a woman who's masculine dominant, she may connect more with a male who's feminine dominant for them to bring that energy of oneness together, but she still may need to tap in and learn from this man how to even tap into her feminine energies. So in a way, it goes beyond the physicality of what sex you choose to come in as, but really towards understanding energy, which is the law of the universe. The law of gender shows us that there is masculine and feminine within everything, and that's what brings balance, right? So we're moving towards oneness, and in order to move towards oneness, we have the illusion of supposed opposites and perceiving opposites, really ultimately for us to get to that space of balance.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, in this trip, we're this polarity, duality. It seems that our efforts can be generalized or really specified into one thing, regardless of what we're looking at, and that is to integrate or 0 point. And I guess when you get right down to it, gender is the last line in the sand.
Exactly.
Because that's and that's, which brings me to another subject. There's been a lot of talk from a lot of people, my wife being one of them years ago, 12 years ago, getting the download that we're going from the age of duality to the age of the Trinity, which would
Yeah.
be the reality of a third energy where two or more gather. A lot of it, can be attributed to some of the what people call twin flame or divine union, the third energy that's created. Solargy is a third energy, as an example that's been created out of divine love, that speaks to us, that communicates with us, that has its own consciousness, and so on. But that's just a copy, a microscopic copy of what I'm getting at. So my question to you is, with your wealth of experience and the wealth of memory recall that you have in your consciousness, what do you think the potential is? I mean, right now, you and I are creating a third energy. You and I are merging. We're creating a third energy. There's others here that are contributing to this incredible transformational vortex, okay, in this moment, right? Then you can look at things like how fast we've accelerated, let's just say over the last couple of years. Uh, I'm talking about the potential of teleportation, bilocation, all those things that we do in dimension. Do you feel that we have a real shot at doing those things in this physicality, especially when you're considering that it seems to be our primary focus is to integrate any and all polarities and such? But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do believe exactly. I mean, that's always been naturally within our DNA, and it's only because of the genetic mutations that have taken place on the individualized human soul that the natural soul evolution that we're meant to go through doesn't take place. But everything in our reality is helping us to shift, not only in our understanding of what it means to be human, but also in how to utilize and this field, this energy body that we have, so that it can be transient and to activate those other senses. We look at our sight, taste, seeing. All of these things are our five senses, but they are the lower senses. Yeah. Biolocation is a sense, empathy is a sense, telepathy is a sense. And so as you see that we go through this awakening, we're actually starting to awaken more of those senses. Being able to bilocate and levitate. It's funny because when I was in some of the training schools that I was in the UK, ones that I was guided to, we did learn how to do these things. And it really is all about learning how to transcend matter. And so everything that we're learning right now is helping us to get towards that place, even understanding the foods that we eat, even learning how to control your mind. All of those things will help bring us to that point of being able to do those things which are natural to us. And so, as I said, as we're moving into this next harmonic universe, or this next stage of evolution and development, our anatomy will shift with our consciousness. So yes, I definitely do know for a fact that this is things that we're going to move into, but it takes us gradually moving into this. And even so-called negative experiences help to shift our collective perception and understanding of what it means to be human. So I'll give you an example. When they talk about the current situation with the G internet and all these things, what it's done is, as much as it's brought up fear for people, it's made people understand that we are vibratory beings and that we can be affected by things that we cannot see. So we have to now start thinking about, how do we protect our energy? Even that alone is a shift from maybe 10, 20 years ago, when people would have thought you was crazy talking about that, right? Absolutely. Even when we look at the foods that we eat, I've been encouraging people to take things like monatomic gold and chlorophyll, because all of these things actually metaphysically change the anatomy. Right. They change the anatomy of your body. We have gone through a fall in consciousness, because when we look at our ancestors, or the ancestors of this planet, they were doing things that were way beyond our perception now. And as I say that, we only fell so that we could experience what it means each and every time to come from being the seed, then back to the star, then to the seed, to the star. So the process of everything that's taking place in our reality, our collective reality right now, is pushing us towards now being able to understand the mechanics of how to utilize these hidden aspects of us. Before, they would say, we only had 2 activated strands of DNA and the rest of it was junk. Now we know that most of those DNA strands are connected to your chakras and are connected to different abilities that awaken within you. When we look at the natural evolutional process of the soul, when it first incarnates into the physical body, what's supposed to happen is, for the first 0 to 7 years, you're still tethered and connected to spirit. So what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to still cultivate that relationship with spirit. We're supposed to get our young people to keep cultivating that spirit, stay in their imagination, to start awakening now the foundation for their other senses. Because when you start looking at biolocation, we look at telepathy, they come from a place of belief and knowing. Once you have an awareness that you can do that, that's where it comes from. Like, even if we look at Peter Pan and flying, it says, think happy thoughts, meaning that the mind and the heart are both aligned to be able to open us up to the potentiality of those real experiences. However, this reality is set towards constantly suppressing you and suppressing that connection so that you become fully integrated into this reality. So the natural process, once you get to 7, then between 7 and 12, your gifts start to come online, right? Between 12 and 22, that's when you're supposed to go through really developing your natural skills. So you would have elders around you who are trained in certain spiritual arts to help you to now start seeing which are your stronger senses. If you start connecting with angels, or you start hearing spirits speaking to you, you have elders that understand that and help you to bring a sense of normalcy around awakening those parts of yourself. Between 22 and 33, those are the ages of mastery. So you go through dealing with your shadow self, and all of these things help you to become an evolved soul within the body. And so even when we look at the Christ story, that it shows you that journey. We know when he went away to go and learn in the mystery schools. We know when he was in a space of service. At 33, he was at his highest vibrationary stage. And so the ages between 33 and 44 is when you awaken and embody your avatar consciousness, your avatar self. So what I'm saying is there has always been a natural path of soul evolution for the human hybrid soul. However, due to the genetic modification through certain Anunnaki and Leviathan and Jehovian bloodlines who have implemented certain things within our DNA, it stopped us from being able to go through the natural soul's evolution, because if we were really evolving our natural divine design, we couldn't be held in slavery. There's no way that we would be sitting on this planet vegetating in this low state. So that's what needed to happen. However, the way that nature works, and when we look at nature, it tells us how things work. The way that nature works is, even though you might try and suppress something, an organism, it will always find another way of being able to do what it needs to do. And so we were always waiting to get to this point, mainly because the frequency of the planet would shift to a certain vibration, which will make it easier for us to start awakening these sacred natural gifts within us. Whereas whilst the planet was so dense and we were so dense, it was difficult for us to really go through that process. So that's the best way of explaining it.
So you have hundreds of thousands, millions of elevated, aware, conscious, connected individuals, as opposed to 3 or 4 or 5, like a Jesus or an Amma or a Buddha. But yeah, I mean, it's a wild ride, man. What's happening? It's great to talk to you and to get your perspective. I wanted to ask you, now you said you had 5 kids, and you still have kids in the house. You look fairly young. I mean, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm 36. So my eldest is 16 and my youngest is 6.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you, because this is another thing that seems to be coming into play now in a big way, and that's the children. That's the young people. Obviously, they're coming in. They're more aligned than we are. They've had less conditioning. You can talk about crystal children and diamond and all that.
Yeah.
But you've got a great life experience here, situational experience, almost like a laboratory. I mean, you got all these kids around you. What kind of, even though you've come in lit, okay, what kind of influence have they had? Because I know you've evolved, as we all evolve here, regardless of how we come in. But what kind of influence have they had? What are you picking up from them? And what do you think these young people's impact are going to be in this realm?
Okay, it's very interesting that you asked me that as well, because even when I was coming in, I knew I was going to be part of being a custodian for the young people that were going to come into this realm, especially around now. And so I suppose my contract was that I needed to start with my own. And so I have 5 children. 2 of them are actually lit, like you said. So 2 of them are destined. They are so activated to 6th and 7th dimensional levels. And then there's the other 3 who are at different stages. And what I've experienced so far is that number one, the nature of how my life has been as well, because of certain family structures and things that took place, I had to kind of shelter them because they were so awake, because they had such abstract thinking to everyone else. I had to shelter them, and so give them a space where they could be nurtured into naturally into their own talents. My eldest daughter, and when we understand how children work, the first child usually takes on the energy and the karma of the parents wherever they are. So the first child usually has more of a denser frequency. And so my first child, in comparison to the other four, she has a different frequency, but she's more of a feeler. So she really feels people on a physical level, and she's highly intuitive, but she's more based on feelings. Whereas my son, who came next, he was interesting because he's very much an alpha male. His name is Osiris, and I dreamt them all before they came here, and they told me their names in a dream. Even my youngest one, she said to me she saw me on TV in heaven, and the TV was the moon. So they have memories, right, of these experiences. And that's why we can't suppress our children. We have to allow them to speak to us and understand that they are evolved souls. But my son, what he showed me was he's very much a masculine young man, but he's very feminine on the inside, even to the point where at some point, my societal programming made me question if he was going to be accepted for who he was. And as he grew, as I just let him be, I realized that what he represented was the archetypal man moving forward, like the fifth
Yeah.
dimensional man. He was able to be caring and nurturing. He loved children, but he also had this part about him where when it's his time, he doesn't want to hear nothing. He just wants to go in his room and be by himself, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. My other daughter, she had a problem when she was born where her legs were very much bow. So she was having a lot of pain in her legs. And I asked Spirit what I was meant to do to help her with that. And so I attuned her to Reiki. And so now she is a healer that had to learn to heal herself. And obviously
Wow.
that helped her on her path. So now she heals others. Interestingly, her name is Nephthys, and Nephthys is the mistress of the underworld. She is the mistress of the house, but she's the divine sister of Isis. So I have Isis, I have Nephthys, and I have Osiris. And she represents that shadow world. She represents, that part of us that is divine, but is shrouded in mystery and feels unappreciated, feels unaccepted. And so I'm always cultivating a process where she can accept her light, where she can go through that journey. And then you've got the last one, who's the most potent, her name is Amenti, and she holds this frequency of just being all knowing, but she's come here to play. She teaches us about imagination. She has not lost that connection with her imagination. She'll stand there talking to the aliens. She loves unicorns. She'll tell you, no, mum, unicorns are real and they heal the heart. So,
Wow.
these children that come in, they are already pre-programmed. I mean, even when we look at indigo children, right? Because I came in the age of indigo. But on an actual genetic level, the indigos come with their sixth strand of DNA already intact. So that shows you that their third eye is already activated. They may have distortions in their lower chakras and therefore their lower DNA structures, but they're born with that. So it already shows you that the genetics of the human already started to shift in the 70s to prepare us for now being able to move into this age. So these children are pre-programmed already. They've come to teach a lot of their parents as well. And part of my purpose here is to create a school for them, a Jupiter Starseed Academy for children and their parents, but mainly for them, so that they can get that process of nurturing their gifts and being supported in understanding who they are without that suppression that we all have to go through, and to
Absolutely.
lose who we are and be conditioned.
Absolutely. And these in this divinely orchestrated quarantine virus, whatever you want to, that we all, the you, me, we, and it designed, is serving that, because now they're staying
Exactly.
home. They're
Exactly.
in the sun. They're not in that. Yeah. So this is incredible. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely incredible. That's fascinating what you're picking up from these kids. No
Yeah.
doubt. No doubt at all. So with like, eh, I mean, I can't even imagine, my kid walking in and saying, "Hey, I just spent some time with the unicorn." Although I've got one like that, I've got six, and they just. But you're right; they all carry different attributes and different
Yeah.
methods of moving the ball up the field. There's no doubt about it. But they just seem to be. I always look at it this way: it's like if you put a kid, like say a 4 or 5 year old, into a big room full of toys, that kid's going to go to what they like. And
Exactly.
that to me, as I watch my children, I go, okay, that's the frequency or the energetic pattern that's natural, and that's
Yes.
what I want to kind of model myself after is, who do I want to be with and what do I want to do? How do I
Yeah.
want to serve? And it's yeah, like I think you said the young one, she came here to play. And I think there's a lot to be said for that, no doubt. Now, what
Exactly.
what part of the world are you in? I'm just
I'm in
curious.
London, UK.
Okay, I thought you were, and then I thought you said something that made me think. Well, maybe you moved from there. That's a that's a really powerful uh, uh, soul coordinate to be positioned at. So obviously, your field, your team, to include your family, your physical monad, your non-physical monad, or however you want to put it, is there for a reason.
Yeah.
I guess you've been exposed to it for a while.
Yeah.
Do you ever have to contend with the the perfectly designed apparatus we might call the matrix, or the machinations of the matrix, that might be located in London? A lot of people point to that as being the financial center, epicenter of the world, and so on. And we don't have to get into all that. But do you ever find yourself having to contend with that? Does it ever challenge you? Are you able to stay in balance and stay in a higher perspective? And I would think that this is something that might enter your field because of the fact that you have children and that there are
Mm.
other people that you love that are being influenced, even though you may be okay with it. But how do you look at all that London represents and all the stuff that it brings to the table?
It's interesting because I was having this conversation with myself the other day. You question why you're born in the place that you are. And I know that this place holds a lot of ancient energy and ancient codes for me. And also me being here holds the codes. London is the Earth Star chakra of the planet, which activated in 2012. The Earth Star chakra basically represents the collective ancestral energy of humanity, of the whole world, right?
Mm.
So, yeah, it's interesting because, yes, I have been through the process of dealing with the machine, so to speak. When my third daughter Isis was born, basically she was kidnapped from our house by the doctors. They came. I had a home birth. They came to the house and basically kidnapped her. Told me that she was a hermaphrodite and that they needed to take her and take blood from her every 3 hours for 7 days. Now that was ridiculous. They had me under police cordon. They didn't even tell me why. So I've been through quite a lot, and then I made a
Holy
decision.
holy
Yeah,
shiitake mushrooms, man!
I know, right?
I'd have been out for blood, and I think I'm pretty balanced. But
I mean, I was really,
wow.
it was quite a
I
traumatic.
I don't want to interrupt your story, but do you think that they had some clue as to who you
They
were?
did.
And okay, go ahead.
They did because I was a glitch. From a young child, they would always want to take my blood. I mean, I remember scenes where I was having blood taken and I passed out and I woke up and they were still taking blood out of me, and they knew my blood type and things like that. I mean, as much as I always tried to act like that wasn't something that was real, just the more I had my children, that's where I started to realize that there is this agenda and they do know who you are and they are tapping into you. And so, but at the same time, let me say this, I believe that all of those experiences happened to teach me lessons and help
Yeah.
me now to be able to help other people. So
Yes.
with my daughter, I was able to see firsthand how they use the medical system and the police system as a way of trapping humans and trying to use them for their own agenda. And so I had to rise above that and assert my sovereignty in order to save myself and my child, because you're given this pre-understanding or precondition that they have the authority and you have to do what they want you to do and you have to trust everything that they say. But really, those experiences pushed me into a place of really understanding sovereignty and law and how I could exercise that. Another thing that happened maybe about 2-3 years after that was I had already made the decision not to vaccinate my children because my first daughter, my mum was heavily involved when I was raising her. And obviously you get the family who are like, oh, well, you have to vaccinate and you have to do this,
Hmm.
you have to do that. She was vaccinated and she got every condition, every illness going. She had the measles, she had the mumps, she had the rubella, she was always sick. So I made a decision that with the other ones, I was not doing that. And after I had obviously gone against the system by getting my daughter out of the hospital and not allowing them to have that control over us, within 3 years, they now tried to come to my house. The social services tried to put me on what they call a child protection order, saying that I was neglecting my children because I wasn't giving them the
Wow.
vaccination. Now, even though that's your free will and right, and there's no law that says you have to, they threaten you with things like social services and basically encroaching on your life in order to make you give over your power. So I was not doing that, but they literally had me on a child protection plan for 2 years. But Spirit showed me that there was something that I needed to do through this process. So I went and studied shamanic homeopathy, and that gave me the credence and the power now to be able to investigate what they actually put in those vaccinations, and also gave me the authority as a homeopath to be able to say and write letters, not just for myself, but for others, to say that we do not agree with the vaccines and instead we're going to use such and such and such. Now, it got to the point where they wanted to take me to court to take my children away. That's how close it got. You know, it didn't matter what I was saying. They had
I thought I was
legal.
pretty balanced, but I'm getting really pissed off listening to this.
Yeah. I mean, it really irked me as well, because as I said, I had already lived a quite secular environment with my children because I had to protect them from family members. So to have to go through this, you know, they took it to the courts, and I came to the courts with a dossier, a collection of information which outlined exactly what was involved in all of those vaccinations, all of the formaldehyde, the aborted fetuses. I gave reports as to what effects it does to the body. And I also provided them with a copy of the Hippocratic Oath and said that if any doctor could prove to me that this was not going to harm my child, then obviously down to the oath, I would make that decision, which they couldn't do because they don't even know what's in it. So the judge then ruled at that point that had I have given my children the vaccines based on this information, then he would have had to deem that I was being neglectful. So it was all thrown out of the court. Now,
so wait a minute, let me get this. So the judge said, had you given the kids the vaccine with the information that you had gathered and presented to the court, that you would have actually been neglecting instead of vice. Wow.
Exactly. And so, I mean, that's what showed me that you have to be willing to learn, and you have to be willing to fight and defend for what is right and true. We live in a reality where we give away our powers without even thinking, because we're pre-programmed from birth that there is a superior entity that's more powerful than us outside. And for me, I have a formidable spirit because I've only ever known God. I haven't been able to rely on anybody outside of myself to give me the truth and clarity. And one of the things that I have is just this lion heart spirit. I'm here for the truth, and especially when it comes to my children.
I think we came from the same branch of the tree of life because, you know, and I've had my own journey with it, and I've had many, many dealings with the legal system, you know, the police. I mean, this is going back, but you know, I'm like you. I'm like, okay, why is this happening?
Yes.
And I guess, you know, it's always been there as well, you know, and when things got really extreme, that's the way I designed it 9 years ago. It took me deeper into that connection with God. And one of the things that I understood is that, and I didn't understand it fully at the time, was that if you can take this on and you can do it in a state of balance, and you can hold this space, that you're actually not just converting and transforming yourself, but you're actually doing something on a more of a collective basis. And so I think that's been a big part of my journey. But I've got that same, but I realize now too, that you can't be like rebellious about it, you know, because that carrying that type of charge is no different than carrying an oppressive charge.
Exactly.
But like you said, you know, like you stand up, you know, like and I've told this story a couple of times. We just found a place in Arkansas after 3.5 years traveling around like gypsies. And it's kind of a unique place, and it had been vacant a while. And, you know, I pull out of the driveway, and this is a small town. A cop pulls up and blocks me, and he walks up to the car and he says, what are you doing here? You know, why are you back here? And I said, because I live here. He said, give me your ID. I said, no, I didn't do anything wrong. Now, my wife, who's very lit, she immediately said, well, I'll give you mine, you know? And so I guess the reason I'm saying that is because what you're talking about, the subtleties of in the very almost undetectable nuances and dynamics of how we give our power away. And if there's anything you can really drill this down to, you know, and I'm talking about not just at the higher perspective where you see everything and, you know, it's all great, but I'm talking about the human hybrid soul, the boots on the ground. What's it really like? You know, the meat and potatoes, the raw, the authentic. What's that feel like? To me, it is about power. It is about finding our power. It's about being disempowered and I don't see any middle ground anymore. And it's like,
No.
hey, you know what? I'm an eternal soul. You can do whatever the hell you want. I had a conversation like this with the reptilian last night.
Yeah.
And I said, look, we've been through this before. I'm going to open my heart and I'm trusting. Period.
Yes.
End of story. Because we know what's happened in the past. You kick my ass, I kick yours. We come back, we do it again. It's time to go home, man. It's time to go to the happy hour now. But yeah, fascinating conversation. Fascinating. I'd love to collaborate with you again if you're open to it. I
I'm
know
happy for that.
oh, that'd be great. I know the community here is very open. I can tell because I'm a numbers freak and a metrics freak, and I watch everything. But yeah, as Daya said, very powerful sharing, and yeah, and we're very open. We're also very creative here. If you ever wanted to, or just entertain the idea of having any of your kids on with you,
Oh yeah.
having partners or friends or anything. We need to,
Cool.
my feeling is, well, anytime somebody says you need to, you have to, I start to run now. But it would behoove us, in my opinion, all of us to continue to expand the frequencies of these types of exchanges
Mm,
because they are, in my opinion, without words, this is how we change this realm
exactly.
and really beyond this realm. I think this is a
Exactly.
multiversal alignment ascension, and I think we're at the epicenter of it. But you're a beautiful, beloved sister. Thank you for your service. Thank you for sharing space with us. Thank you for honoring us with your presence. And if there's anything you'd like to do before we get out here, if there's anything you'd like to further commentate about, or any type of healing, if you want to get up and sing and shake and dance a little bit, whatever, you're more than welcome to. You're more than welcome. The floor is all yours.
Cool. Okay. So first and foremost, I really want to thank you. I really feel like we're kindred spirits, and so
Mm.
it's beautiful to be able to see another reflection of myself, and you to see your reflection in me as well. It's beautiful because at this particular moment, what I'm loving about this time that we're in the ascension is that we are seeing each other for the first time. I'm sure this is a lot of a first time a lot of your people are seeing me, and it's not the first time I'm seeing you, but I'm sure it's the first time you're seeing me. And this is the beauty of it, that we are coming together as aligned frequencies. So I want to thank you as well for just opening up your space for me to be with you. I really appreciate it. I want to give thanks to everybody who's listening as well. I can feel all the beautiful energy, so I just want to say thank you to each and every one. I just want to ask the Most High to step into each and every one of your hearts and help you to activate that truth within. I want you to utilize this Lion's Gate portal to free yourself from any illusions. The lion represents your power. It represents you being in your light. It represents you breaking through any illusions. And do not be afraid, because when you make a stand to step in truth, you will be supported. It's the fear of moving into that place that stops us from moving into that place. I encourage you, I implore you to just move into the space of power and follow your truth. All right. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm sure you can find me on all of the platforms, just Amenti the Awakener. And yeah, I want to sing to you a song, just quickly, a song that the ancestors sang to me in the forest, because I go to the forest quite a lot, especially in the UK. They have some really ancient
Yeah,
lands, right? And so I just want to sing a song that the ancestors are asking me to sing to you all. And I hope that it ignites your heart.
beautiful.
So it says, when the ancestors keep telling you you're powerful, believe it. You're powerful, believe it and know. When the ancestors keep telling you you're loved, believe it. You're loved, believe it and know. Ashe, Ashe, ancestors guide the way. When the ancestors keep telling you you're powerful, believe it. And I trust in the power of song. So I hope that reached your heart and reminded you how great you are. We need each and every one of you. Black sheep, rainbow sheep, gold sheep, white sheep, whatever you are, it's your time. So yeah, thank you very
Right
much
on.
again, Todd.
Oh yeah, we're definitely cut from the same cloth. And my friend uh, Yvette Goulet lives out in California.
Yeah.
She said she'd like to connect with you. Do you have
Oh,
she
please. She's
really
welcome.
she's and I know her. She's a very dear friend of mine. She's one of the few people, maybe one of the two or three few people that I ever call on over the years as I was on this path the last 9 years and things got tough. I'd call her up and she's got the same makeup you do, and she do a little bit of whatever, I don't know what you call it, uh, uh, incantation or whatever it
Yes.
was that worked for me, light language or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm glad she's here today, and I'm happy that you're here. And I look forward to many, many, many collaborations. All blessings to you and your family. And
Thank
thank you
you.
again for coming in, honor us with your presence.
Mwah. Thank you.